Hey gang, are you ready to take your image from this to this in under 2 minutes? Well, let me show you the power and ease of Nik's Color Efex. So I'm going to walk you through this incredible software and show you why I find it just indispensable in my workflow. So I'm going to let you in on my secret formula for stunning sunrises and sunsets, my favorite filter for adding an ethereal glow, my favorite filter to tame scenes that are just a little crazy busy, and so much more. So check the timestamps for referencing important parts again in the future if you want to see something over again. It's important to me that you find the information that you need quickly and easily. So let's get started. You can download a free 30-day trial of the Nik Suite using the link in the description. And there's also a discount code just for you guys for 15% off that is good through June 16th only. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to launch this program from both within Lightroom Classic and from Photoshop. So we'll start with Lightroom Classic. Now, I'm not going to spend any time in here, but this is a raw image, and I would do the standard raw processing within Lightroom, kind of get it as far as I feel comfortable getting it within the Lightroom ecosystem here. But if I want to take it to the next level, that's when I would bring it into a plugin, and it's typically my Nik software. Now, as this is kind of a deep dive into color effects, not totally in the deep end, but fairly deep, we're going to start with the interface and go through all of the program. So when I'm ready to bring an image into a plugin, I typically just right-click and say Edit In, and then bring it into the plugin of choice. So today we're going to go to Nik 7 Color Efex, and I like to edit a copy with the Lightroom adjustments. Okay. Little thing to know about working with a TIFF file, because that image, when you do launch it from Lightroom, it gets converted into a TIFF, is that I want to make sure that I am maintaining non-destructive edits. So anytime that I'm launching from Lightroom, I want to make sure that this little box is checked. Okay, let's start and we'll go left to right. On the left, we have categories. So you can scroll through these. They're in alphabetical order, and all these are a shorter list. You'll see every time I click on one, the list on the bottom shortens to the typical filters associated with these types of photography. So if I'm doing a landscape, these are the typical filters that might be used with a landscape image, and so on and so forth. I can create my own category in here if I want to, create a new category, manage my workspace, things like this. So we really don't need to get into the weeds of all of this. So if I want to move a category to another category, I can do that. So make a copy, create a new one, find another category. Personally, I don't really use the categories themselves. I have over time found the same filters that I kind of go to again and again. And that is where your favorites come in. Okay, so just briefly, I'm going to go over the presets that are available here. So when I do that drop down for presets, I see a series of images. Now I have color highlighted up here. So if I click on creative, those presets are going to change. So I'm going to go back to all of Nik, and that's when I get a whole slew of presets. So if you are just curious about, kind of what this program can do, having a look at the presets is a really good idea. So if I clicked on something like Wildlife Cool Evening here, now anytime I click a preset, it's going to give you this warning. You can turn it off by saying do not show again. You'll never see it again. But it is a healthy reminder that if you have set up a bunch of filters already, they're going to get wiped out the minute you hit a preset. So if you're going to use a preset, I say start there and then go. Okay, so when I click on a preset, you can immediately see on the right side every filter that is associated with this preset. So I've got Pro Contrast, Glamour Glow, Darken-Lighten Center, and Duplex. These are the 4 filters that are associated with that particular preset. And of course, you can come in here and make changes to any one of these filters within the preset itself. So if I want to back out and undo all of that nonsense, I think the quickest way is probably just to go back to my history down here and click on original image, and everything goes bye-bye. All right, so let's get to the main thing here, and that is our filters. So you'll notice the list of filters is going to change based on what I'm clicking here up in categories. All right. If this is your first trip into Color Efex, I highly recommend clicking on all Nik and just scrolling through these and seeing what they do. So if I click on black and white conversion, you can see what happens there. Although black and white, I would probably prefer to do that in Silver Efex, and I'll have another video on that at some point here in the future. Bicolor, user defined. Now notice each one of these has a plus, 3 little dots, and a drop down. Okay, the drop down is going to show you the presets for that one filter. So this one filter, Bicolor user defined, has got all of these presets. And you click the 3 little dots and you can add it to a category. So if you decide that you want to create your own landscape category, your own portrait category that uses the same 4 or 5 or 10 filters again and again, this is a good way to do that. So just add this, add to a category, you can create your own category and go from there. If you decide that you use a filter over and over again but you don't want to create a category, you click the little star button off to the left of the filter itself and it instantaneously becomes a favorite. So now when I click on my favorites, there they are. So Bicolor user defined is among my other favorites. Turn that off by clicking it again, and that's not one of my favorites, so I'm going to turn that off. But you will notice if you look over at the right side while I'm clicking these filters that when I click on one, the previous one disappears. Okay, so every time I click on one of these, I am removing the last one that I looked at. So if I decide that I want to keep color stylizer, if I want to keep that one, and I also want to add contrast only, I have to click the plus button. That is very important. You will quickly lose your work if you just start clicking on these and you don't click the add button. So if I click add, you'll notice on the right side, color stylizer has remained and I've added contrast only. So if I want to add another one like Darken-Lighten center, I have to click that plus icon again. One more. And you can see that the ones that I have selected on the right-hand side have a little yellow or orange line right next to them. So I have this filter engaged, this one, and this one. All right, if I decide I don't want one, I can come over to the filter itself and click on the little X right there. So I don't want Darken-Lighten center anymore. I don't want contrast only anymore. And again, I have color stylizer, so if I come in here and go, yeah, but I want to add some fog, and I click on fog, color stylizer disappeared. So just be very wary of that. So below this list, you're going to see where it says last edits. So these are actually dated. So you can come in here and see the edits that I did previously. And I am now in early June, and it is keeping track of everything that I've done all the way back through May 1st. So it's got the last 15 edits right here. So if you did something a week ago and you just can't remember what it was that you did, you can come back here and click on it. That's actually very handy. All right, so I'm going to click on tonal contrast. So let's have a look over at the right side here. So every time you click on a filter, you're going to get these options, and they're different for every filter. So let me add another one. Let me add white balance. Okay, my sliders for tonal contrast are going to be different than my sliders for white balance. Every filter has different options, so you're going to have to kind of spend some time in here and get used to what each one of these is capable of doing. So tonal contrast, I'm adding contrast to highlights, midtones, and shadows, a little bit of saturation, and I can choose the contrast type. And when I hover over these, it's going to give me a preview in the main window of what they look like. And this right here is actually, when it says shadows and highlights, I'm actually going to drag this to the right. And what I'm doing is I'm protecting my shadows and protecting my highlights. So this is basically only applying to the midtones at this point. And then of course I can change the overall opacity, because sometimes I find that this is just a little too heavy-handed. I want a little boost of contrast, but I don't want it to be overkill. I come down to white balance and I can choose the color picker and choose a neutral in here, and it adjusts the overall white balance, but that's something that I would typically do in Lightroom, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Let's add a skylight filter, drag that up. It does a wonderful warming of the entire image. You have the option here, if you've been messing around in this for a while and you're like, you know, I just want to start from scratch, but I don't want to shut the filter down and then redo it, you can reset it with these 3 little lines right here. So You can reset the filter and keep any local adjustments that you've made, or delete the local adjustments. So that's just a complete hard reset of that one particular filter. It doesn't touch tonal contrast, it's just doing the skylight filter right now. So let's add something very dramatic. Let's add a black and white conversion, so I can show you a before and after. So up at the top, we've got some quick compare buttons. So if I click and hold that one, that is a straight up before and after of every filter in here. And then you've got the left and right, and you can swap these to up and down, or you can do it that way. Okay, I've got some standard zooms here. So fill, 1:1, 100%, and then a drop down. So if I really want to zoom into 800%, but I mean, why? Within the black and white conversion, you've got a couple of drop downs here. This is nice. So we've got tonal enhancer, dynamic contrast, woof, and we've got the filter color. So you can actually change the overall color filter. You'll see in particular the magentas in the front. They're really changing when I scroll through here. If you up the strength, you're going to see an even bigger difference. So I kind of like that filter that makes those flowers really pop. Here's the opacity. So if you want to do kind of a subdued color image, just adding a black and white conversion and lowering the opacity is a nice fun way to do that. All right, but let's increase the opacity and let's start talking a little bit about our control points here. So I'm going to have a separate video that is all about control points. So I'm just going to talk briefly about them here today. The first one is to add a control point. And when I click on that and I drop it somewhere in the image, click, I'm basically telling it, hey, let's do the black and white conversion here and take it off of everything else. And then you can lower the opacity of that, change the luminance, and you'll actually see that this slider that I've got right here, if I go back and forth right here, you'll also notice the luminance slider off to the right side within the black and white conversion filter. You'll see that sliding back and forth as well. So sometimes, you know, especially if I'm on my little 13-inch laptop, I can barely even see these little things, much less be able to grab them. So it's so much easier to just do it over here. This is making my color selectivity very specific to a particular luminance value that I dropped that control point on. And this is making it very specific to chrominance value that I chose. So if I want to spread that out and include kind of more pinks, I'm going to lower the chrominance. So this is control point number 1. If I click on this tiny little box right here, it'll show the mask for that control point. So here is the outer limit of the control point. So I can drag this out and drag it back in. I can take one of these knobs right here and pull them out if I want more of an ellipse, and I'll show a different example later on that one. Okay, so if I just basically want this on the foreground flowers, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to skip what's up here in the trees. And you can definitely see, I think, better with the mask, with the luminance and chrominance and diffusion values, so you can make a better adjustment. So I like to work with the mask on a lot. You can see when I take these sliders to the right how it's getting so much more specific to where I dropped that control point. And the diffusion is just kind of blending it out on the outer edges there. You can see how it's kind of like adding a soft edged brush to the effect. All right, so I can duplicate that adjustment, and I just got another one, and I can drag this someplace else. This is why I like to have the mask on, because it's really showing me exactly where this is being applied. So if I want to include these red flowers a little bit more in the background here and change that, I can do that. Very specific. A couple more things on this right side that I want to address before I get into just some full-blown edits here is the quick export. So you can do a quick export of your creation here, and it will save just a JPEG version for you. And you can change where that's being saved within the settings within this program. If you want to jump from one Nik program to another, which we did not previously have the ability to do. So now we have this ability, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I can switch to another program. So if I want to bring this into Viveza or bring it into Silver Efex, I can do that straight from here. So I'm not going to do that today. And if you decide that, let me turn the masks off here. If you decide that you want to create your own preset with all of the sliders in place the way that they are, you can click on Save Preset right here. So if you find yourself doing kind of the same amount of work to the typical landscape photo that was shot in overcast light, then I might do that. But I typically just treat each image individually and work on from scratch. All right, so let's get rid of these. Let's start from scratch. Now, what would I normally do to an image like this? So what's my beef about this image? Okay, this image I think is a little bit chaotic. So I'm going to show you my favorite filter for kind of taming a complicated scene. And I'll show it to you on two very different types of images. So in here, what I would probably typically do is I would add a foliage, and you'll notice that all of my greens have just suddenly changed color, but the typical drop down, or the default drop down, is on the yellow. So I actually go straight to number 3, the green, and I might tone it down just a little bit, and I can turn that off and on, and you can see the before and after of just brightening those greens. And I've got happy greens. And if I feel like I want to warm the image, I might give it a skylight filter. And again, don't forget, click the add button, otherwise the foliage one is going to disappear. All right, so I'm going to lower the opacity of the skylight filter. I just want a little touch. There's before and after, very, very subtle. Now there's a filter that I use on almost every image, and that's actually called Darken-Lighten Center. So I'm going to click on add. And what I really love about this, let's pick the right one. I'm going to choose that one, is I can place the center very easily. So I'm going to click on the add right there, and I'm actually going to place the center right here. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to guide the eye kind of down the tunnel view here. All right, so if I drag the border luminosity all the way down and the center luminosity all the way up, and then I change the center size, you can really see the power of this filter and how easy it is to use. But I use it in such a way that it's so subtle you don't even really realize that I've added a vignette. So that's exactly what this is you're adding a vignette, but you're doing it in a very subtle, gradual way. So here is before and after of Darken-Lighten Center. See that again, before and after. And you can just kind of see that these outer edges, particularly up here on the left side, are a little bright, and I just want to darken them down. Super easy. Okay, now here is my absolute favorite, Glamour Glow. Yeah, you would think that that would just be for portraits and stuff, but I use Glamour Glow on my landscapes quite a bit. So I'm going to click on the add button for Glamour Glow. You don't see a huge difference right away, so I'm going to turn that off and on. Not a huge difference, but you can make it a huge difference. So I'm going to crank that up to 100% so we can see everything that we're doing here. So the saturation typically gets pushed down by default on this because of the way the filter works. And then you can change the warmth of the glow. You can change it to a very cool glow or a very warm glow. So I might warm this up a little bit more than the default. Change the opacity of it. All right, so here's before and after. But let's just go ahead and leave that at 100%. But what I like to do with things like this is I love what it does to the trees and the background. Kind of softens the background a little bit. But what I'm going to do is take the control point, and I'm going to hold the Alt or Option key on a Mac, and I'm going to click on my flowers that I want to remain nice and sharp. I'm going to drag that all the way out, and I'm going to click on the mask for that. Oops, that's inverting it, sorry. Click on the mask, and I really need to include more of the flowers. Oops, way too far. See how having that mask on really helps with the selectivity of this particular control point? And then I'm going to keep the diffusion at 100% so it's got that nice soft fall off. And then turn the mask off. Okay, so what that basically did is I took the effect of the Glamour Glow away from the flowers in my foreground so that the flowers in the foreground are maintained nice and sharp. All right, so here's before and after, and you can just see it just looks less busy. Not as busy. It's nice, soft. It's got a little bit of an ethereal glow to it. This is just something that is fun to do with landscapes. Don't do them all, but occasionally it just works, especially for these garden type photos. macro, flowers, things like that is definitely something I would use this for. Okay, so if I'm satisfied with how this image looks, I'm going to click apply. I'm first going to, again, make sure that my non-destructive edits for larger files is clicked on. This will also allow me to reopen the program at a later date. Okay, so here's the original in Lightroom and here's the one from Color Efex. So if I right click on this and I say edit in, this time I'm going to say edit original because it came from Color Efex. I'm going to click OK, and there we go. See, because I edited the original, which included the things that I did previously within the Nik program, all of my filters and my sliders are here available for me to make changes should I wish to in the future. So I'm going to hit cancel because I didn't change anything. Awesome. Let me show you one more thing that I would use Glamour Glow for. All right, so I'm going to make life easier for me. I'm just going to click on my favorites here so I only have these few to choose from. And I'm going to turn on Glamour Glow and I'm going to crank it up. And look at what it does to my background. Just really softened up that background very, very nicely. And then I'm going to click on Skylight Filter, warm this up a little bit, and my foliage, turn it green. And this time I'm going to go back to the long list and I'm going to use something that I didn't previously use. I'm going to use white neutralizer because I do see kind of a heavy color cast coming from all of this. So I want to make sure that these birds are rendered in their correct tones. There we go. So there's before and after of the white neutralizer. Let's compare before and after here. So that's before and after. Got a little bit soft in here with the Glamour Glow, so I'm actually going to go in to that filter, hold the Option or Alt key, and remove the effect from my birds. I'm going to stretch that out, and when I get really close, I can turn it, I can move it, and I can duplicate it. So duplicate it and bring it over here to this guy too. Okay, there. Now they're a little bit sharper. So let's see. Yeah, so I have removed the Glamour Glow off of them in particular. I want to bring this a little bit tighter. And then I can add a regular control point to the background just to kind of grab those tones and make sure that they are getting selected. Awesome. So here is before and after. Nice soft glow. Very pretty. Next up is going to be my favorite filter for sunrises and sunsets. So let's do this one. Okay. Let's bring this into Photoshop first so we can see the Photoshop workflow. So I'm going to edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments. All right, now if you are working straight from Photoshop, you would simply do File, Open, and bring this image directly into Photoshop. And this is one of my favorite things. I love to have the Nik Selection Tool available. So if you do not see that, go to File, Automate, or the Nik Collection 7 palette, which is now what it's called. Okay, so this has all of my Nik tools just ready and available. If you don't want to use them that way, simply go to Filter, Nik Collection, and then choose Color Efex. That's where we're working today, but if you want to work in another program, work in another program. So Nik 7 Color Efex has a little drop down here. So if you want to go straight to your presets, you can do that here and just click on one of these to apply it straight out of the gate, or your filters. And you can do the last edit. You can automatically apply your last edit here. But let's just go ahead and open the program. So I'm going to click on that. You can see that it automatically created a Photoshop layer, and that's one of the reasons why I do like to work with this program within Photoshop. And you have a different option here. This one says convert to a smart object. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that, because when I do that, it gives me that ability that we saw within Lightroom to reopen the program at a later date, with all my sliders in place so I can make changes. So I'm going to click on my favorites tab, and I'm going to add some tonal contrast. I don't really want to add it to my sky. I think it does a little bit too much. So I'm going to click on the add a control point and simply drop it on my foreground. So there is before and after. You can see how it really beefs up that foreground nicely. I'm going to go ahead and do an automatic graduated neutral density to lighten my foreground. Just a little bit, not too much, kind of balance it out. I didn't add. See, there I go. So I'm gonna have to go into my history. The thing that I told you not to do, I just went ahead and did. There we go. Okay. See how important that is? Graduated neutral density. So let's click the add button so we maintain our tonal contrast. So the upper tonality we're going to kind of leave alone. We're going to brighten our lower tonality there. That's nice. Blend it out. Cool. So let's see before and after. Not bad. Been in here for 30 seconds and we're here already. Go back to my favorites. Here's my absolute favorite for sunrises and sunsets, and that is the skylight filter. So I'm going to click on the add button. Look at what it does to my clouds. Oh, I love that. Love it. So let's turn that off and back on again. Awesome. So I am actually going to add a control point and hold that option key and drop it on my water in my foreground because I think my water got a little too pink with that skylight filter. So let's check the mask on that. And I just want to remove it from the water in my foreground. There we go. So if I turn that control point off and on, you can see how it just kind of helps with the pinks there. And I might actually duplicate that and bring it over here too. And just squeeze that in there. Okay. That's better. So now you can see that I have really removed the skylight filter from the water, but I have left it all on the sky and of course the backlighting highlights of my wood there. All right, so let's do before and after. Here's before. Not a bad photo at all, but so much better. And I might even want to bring out a little bit more detail in this log here. So I'm actually going to go to Detail Extractor, which is a very heavy-handed filter in my opinion, but that's the beauty of the opacity slider. Just tone it down. And then I'm going to add a control point and say, you know what, I really just want that here. All right, so let's see before and after of the Detail Extractor. That is just enough oomph for me. Perfect. All right, so let's do an overall before and after. Here's where we started. Here's where we are. Way more professional looking image. So I'm going to click apply. And you can see that it brought it back into Photoshop. I've got Nik Color Efex listed here. It is a smart filter. So if I wanted to reopen this program and make changes in the future, I would just double click that Nik Color Efex smart filter. Yes, it is a smart object. Thank you very much. And everything that I did is here. So if I find, you know, when I go and make a test print at home that I have overly crunched this foreground here, I can come in and make changes. Super easy. Just click apply again and I'm good to go. Okay, now I'm going to show you my favorite filter for adding like an ethereal glow. Bring it into Color Efex. This is a TIFF, so I'm going to edit the original. Okay. So let's do a little Darken-Lighten center to begin. Just kind of emphasizes this bird, right? Ugh, gorgeous. Just a smidge of detail extractor, which I am only going to add to his face. Let's check that mask. Yep, we are good to go there. Okay. Here we go. Favorite one for adding an ethereal glow is the sunlight filter. So I'm going to click on that, add sunlight. Look at that. Here is before and after, and I haven't even made any changes, but look at him glow. So I can take the light strength up. Don't do it too much. You can change the temperature. So if it's just a little too, yellow for you, a little too warm, you can cool it off. And it doesn't have to be quite so bright. All right. And you can lower the contrast or increase the contrast. Let's increase the contrast. Ooh, that's cool. And then, of course, you have the ability to change the opacity and add any of these control points. So basically, we've only kind of covered the first control point here. The second one is going to add a control line. So this is good if you've got horizons that you're working with. The Polygon tool here is going to allow you to drop around something. So we're just going to make drop, drop, drop. And we're going to speed this up so we don't have to sit through the whole thing. Okay, so let's check the mask for that. Oh, that's inverting it. I don't want to invert it. Here we go. Check the mask for that. I have essentially removed the bird. So let's decrease the luminance here so we can grab more of his feathers, and the same thing with chrominance. Again, backing off of these includes more. Cranking them to the right gets more kind of hyper-specific to where you drop the control point. And then we've got a feathering option here. Okay. All right, so what did I just do there? Why did I do that? I added the sunlight mostly to the background. So I'm actually going to be a little bit more specific with the luminance here because I do want his feathers and everything to have that glow. There we go. All right. So let's do before and after. How pretty is that? That's so pretty. Go ahead and click apply. And then we have side by side here. We have the original raw file and then quickly enhanced in Color Efex. Look at the difference. Here's the before and after. Very cool. Okay, one last example. I do want to talk about the luminosity masks that you can create in here. And I'll do a more in-depth tutorial later, but we just need a quick introduction here. Okay, definitely want detail extractor on that one. Let's grunge this thing up. Warm it up with a skylight filter. Nice. 3 little filters. Here's before and after. Not bad. Okay, so let's take the detail extractor. Let's crank it up. Okay. So let's say I really only want this to be applied to the wood in the background. Now, the wood is a different tonal value, so I'm going to add a luminosity mask right there. And you can see when I drag this to other locations, like if I just wanted the darks of this metal here to be applied with the detail extractor, I would drag it here. But if I just want the tonal values in here, put her there. So again, this is where having that mask on truly helps. Anything in white is having the detail extractor fully applied to it. Anything in black is not having any of that detail extractor applied. Now, so I can come in here and I can click on the zone system. So if I go to zone 8, it's only the very, very bright pixels. If I go to zone 2, it's very dark pixels. All right, so I was somewhere in 6, I think. All right, and I can stretch this out if I want to grab more of those mid-tone values. I can drag this out, or I can get very specific. Okay, that's just a quick overview of detail extractor, and when I turn that off and on, you can see that's off and that's on, how it really beefed up that wood behind it. So that's a very, very handy tool, and I will go into more depth on that one in another video. But let's check out the before and after here. So here's before. Boy, you know, a couple of seconds in here, or a minute or two, and the original image seems so terribly boring by comparison. I like that a lot better. I have included in the description a link to some JPEG versions of the images that I worked on today. If you would like to download them and follow along, you are more than welcome to. I hope you guys have enjoyed this fairly deep dive into Nik Color Efex. Now you know all my cool photo secrets, and you can take your own photos to the next level with the help of Nik. Just remember, your images are your art, and expressing yourself with the help of software is just plain fun. So go have fun. You guys have a great day.